Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the City of San Diego Filipino American Employees Association, I would like to welcome all of you here. There are two things I want to say before we start. Please turn off your cell phone or put your cell phone in vibrate mode so you don't wake up the person sitting beside you. And second is, if you have any question, write your questions and save it toward the end of the presentation. We want our speaker to cover everything he has prepared for us. Let me introduce briefly our keynote speaker who is here today. Mr. Enochs has been practicing law since 1999. Prior to practicing law, Mr. Enochs had a career in banking. Mr. Enochs worked for such companies as General Electric Capital Corporation, National Enterprises Incorporated, Bank of America, and West Capital Financial Corporation. Mr. Enochs attended San Diego State University, wherein he earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, Finance in 1990. Thereafter, Mr. Enochs entered the finance and banking while working in the banking industry, Mr. Enochs attended law school at night. In 1999, Mr. Enochs earned his law degree from Thomas Jefferson School of Law. Mr. Enochs passed the California State Bar exam that same year. Mr. Enochs primarily practices in the area of civil litigation. Mr. Enochs represents clients with collection problems, business disputes, real estate disputes, and financial institutions in the defense of consumer protection lawsuits. May I present to you our guest speaker this morning, Mr. Attorney John Allen Enochs.
Well, thank you very much. I go by Alan. My name is Alan Enochs. I am a lawyer. Today, I'm going to be covering a lot of material, and it's important that I disseminate as much of this material as possible, so I'm going to ask that everybody hold their questions. If you have a question, write down a note, take a note, save it for the end, and I promise I will stick around and answer everybody's question. But it's important for me to get through the material, so I ask that you please hold the questions until the end, and then I'll let you ask away. Next first slide. First thing, I want everybody to take note of. What I am sharing today only applies to property in California. It only applies to property in California. If you have properties in other states, those other states' laws apply, not California law. Also, no two households are identical. Consequently, the appropriate alternative varies from household to household. The way things work out vary from household to household. So there is no cookie-cutter approach that applies across the board to everybody. You cannot look at your neighbor and say, this is how it worked out for my neighbor, therefore this is how it's going to work out for me. You cannot use that type of reasoning. The outcome to mortgage distress will vary from household to household. And we'll talk about that in greater detail. So with that in mind, what I'm going to be providing you here today is with general information as to mortgage distress. What is it? How does it arise? How do you deal with it? What can you expect? Okay. Okay, next slide. Okay, let's start. I want to start with pointing out what I consider to be the obvious, but it's the nature of the relationship between the creditor and the debtor, the homeowner and the lender. The nature of that relationship, ladies and gentlemen, of any borrower with their lender on any type of account, it's an adversarial relationship. Don't lose sight of that. You don't pay, bad things happen. If You do not pay your lender on any type of an account. Credit card, auto loan, home loan, auto lease, doesn't matter. If you don't pay, bad things happen. Look at it this way. If the lender does not receive payment from the borrower, what alternatives does the lender have to get their money? Any idea? Common sense goes a long way here. Well, the borrower's not voluntarily paying. The lender has three options to get their money. They can repossess any collateral they may have. They can sue the borrower. Or they can do any combination of the two. Every time a homeowner or a borrower stops paying on a loan, the lender starts considering those three options. There is nobody inside of the bank where they have a committee meeting and they're trying to decide what can we do that's in the best interest of our borrower. That does not happen. That is not happening. It is a very, very adversarial relationship. They immediately start jockeying for position to try and figure out how they're going to get their money back. And if that means repossessing or foreclosing, they're going to do it. If that means suing, they're going to do it. Now you say, well, why don't they work with the borrower? They will work with the borrower if they think that represents their best alternative under the circumstances to get their money back. If they don't, then they're going to look at a different alternative. So the nature of the relationship between a creditor and a debtor is a very adversarial relationship. You cannot lose sight of that, okay? Next slide. What laws apply? Well, contract law. Loans are contracts. They're contracts. All a contract is, ladies and gentlemen, it's a deal. It's a deal you made with your lender. You made a deal. And what they teach us first year in law school is once you got yourself a deal, you got yourself a deal. Now you may say, well, I don't like my deal. That's unfortunate, because once you got yourself a deal, you got yourself a deal. Well, I want to change my deal. Well, here again, that's unfortunate, because once you got yourself a deal, you got yourself a deal. Is it possible to change the deal? Well, yeah, if the bank or the lender agrees. What if they don't agree? That's unfortunate, because then the original deal stands. And if you're not making payments, you are what is called in breach of contract. You're the bad guy. When you get into a courtroom on a breach of contract claim, the judges are usually and primarily concerned with one question. Did you pay? Yes or no? You ever see the dog whisperer? That show, The Dog Whisperer, with Cesar Millan? He trains those dogs. He gets in front of the dog, he goes, shh, shh, puts his finger up there, and the dogs look at him and start to cower. That's kind of sort of how it plays out in the courtroom. You get in front of a judge, and he's asking you if you paid, or if opposing counsel is asking you if you paid. They're not real interested in hearing about why. They're primarily concerned with whether or not you paid, whether or not you honored the terms of the deal. You either honored the terms of the deal, or you didn't. And if you say, well, no, I didn't pay, well, you lose. Now, it can get more complicated than that, but generally speaking, that's how it works out. That's how it works out. So contract law applies here. There's also some areas, these areas of the Code of Civil Procedure, 580B, 580D and 726 are commonly referred to as California's anti-deficiency statutes, and we'll talk about those as well. Next one. What about Obama law? What about Schwarzenegger?